Hi there and welcome to ShipRaiders.com. I'm Sports Information Director Bill Morgul, and today we're here in the Shippensburg University television studios working in partnership with the students of Dr. Ted Carlins' studio production class. Our focus today is on an individual who helps out behind the scenes with many of Shippensburg's intercollegiate athletic teams and plays an important advisory role. Dr. Chris Carlton is an assistant professor and staff psychologist in counseling services by day, but when not in that role, he spends many hours and nights providing the services to the Raider athletic teams, and he joins us today in the studio to discuss the assistance he provides. Dr. Carlton, thanks for the time.
Thank you. Thank you.
The first question that we have for you is, about 3 years ago, you were invited to an athletics department retreat, and from there you were sort of given the opportunity to explain the role of counseling services to campus. Could you sort of explain how that opportunity first arose that athletics reached out to you?
Sure, yeah. I got to know somebody on the student athlete welfare committee, and so through my associations with that, they decided, hey, it might be a good idea if you were to come and talk to the athletic department. So then I was hooked up with the retreat that so happened to be because it's that time of year. And so I just presented on various aspects of sports psychology with the whole idea of just saying that, hey, here's some of the things that I could do with any individual players or teams in general or coaches. And you just let me know if you might be interested in that.
And sort of from there, it was football that first reached out to you and asked about your services. And then if you could sort of elaborate from there, football reached out, but then other teams after that even started to reach out.
Right. So it was a couple of years ago, I guess it was, and coaching staff for football reached out to me and said, hey, we heard your presentation. We thought that this might be something that might be really helpful for our team because we think the mental part of the game is really important. One of the impressive things about that was that there's a lot of coaches that say that, but there's only certain coaches that are willing to actually put in the time to address the mental aspects. And so it just so happened that we had an extremely good year that year, went to the playoffs and the like. And so then women's basketball coach, Coach Tern, approached me and said, I heard good things about what you're doing with the football team. Would you help us out with the basketball program as well? And
just as a general question too, your background is general counseling services, but you also have that specific sports background. If you could elaborate a little bit on that background, which sort of has you well versed to this role.
Right. So I have my license in clinical psychology, and so that's what I use when I'm over at the counseling center. But then I also have a certificate in sports counseling, and I have a sports background as well. And so for many years, I've worked individually with student athletes and occasionally with teams. But in the last few years, it's become a much bigger part of what I do. And I've very much enjoyed it.
Now, if you could elaborate a little bit further, too, in terms of the areas in which you provide counsel to the teams. Is it more of a relationship with the coaches, the players, or I imagine, though, maybe it's a sort of a combination of all those areas?
Yeah, most definitely, because it usually starts with the coaches. The coaches will come and say, this is what I feel like we need, and so I take a lot of notes in that first meeting about how they view their team that particular season, what they feel like are the strengths and weaknesses, and then really it's through that relationship that dictates to me how much I'm going to be doing with the team, what I'm going to be working with the team on. Because some coaches are very, very open about, hey, whatever you think might be helpful, just let me know and we'll figure out a way to do it. And some coaches understandably are like, this is my team, so I want to have a certain amount of control, and here's the part that I want you to work on, which is perfectly okay too. But that dictates kind of my involvement with each team.
And another aspect that's really important to your work too is you have that relationship with those teams in that sense, but you also have the game day interaction, or in some cases the practice interaction at practice. We've seen you behind the bench at times, whether it's at women's basketball or on the sidelines at football. Being there, though, directly in person has to have a significant effect on being able to allow you to do your job.
Yeah, most definitely, especially in this case with individual players, because sometimes I'll meet with individual players about mental skills, sports psychology sorts of things. And if I'm not at the practice or I'm not at the game, then I really just kind of have to depend on what their memory is of what went on. And if they're struggling with something during the game or during practice, then I can't be there to sort of remind them of certain things. And so it's very informative for me to be at a game. It also gives me an extra opportunity to be helpful to them during the course of a game, so that we don't just have to count on the 45 minutes or whatever that we might meet every so often, or they might hear me speak to apply the things that they're learning.
And this is a relationship we mentioned that has been a couple years running now in some sports. In some sports it's been a little bit of a newer relationship, but the feedback you've received from these teams, I imagine it's been mostly positive, and maybe the feedback for yourself for the relationship you have with the teams, and what's the feedback that the teams have been giving back to you?
Yeah, I've been really, really happy with the response that I've gotten from players and from coaches. Usually at the end of a particular season or end of the year, I'll ask players, so what do you think that I did that was helpful to you? What do you think that you'd like to see done differently? And the great thing is when I ask them what I think they would like to see done differently, consistently what I hear is, I want to hear more. I want you to interact with us more. I want you to talk to us more. And so then that really motivates me to say, okay, good. So this is helping out, and I want to do more things to help them out.
And I imagine as you continue in this role, whether or not necessarily you ask yourself what are some of the lasting effects you hope to bring to that relationship, whether it's increased conversation, or is that something you hope to be able to do among the players and the teams as you sort of continue forward with this role?
Yeah, most definitely. And one of the really neat things about sports psychology, whether it's talking about dealing with adversity or maintaining focus or developing confidence, those are all things that you can not only apply, in sports, but you can apply outside of sports as well. And so I would really hope that a number of the players take those things that they've learned from stuff when I've been working with them and use that in other parts of their life. And so to me, that would be sort of the most gratifying thing if that was happening.
And that's a wonderful transition in a sense to the final question I want to ask is, we've had sort of a sports-based discussion today, but also you work in the counseling center and you provide general counseling services to the campus. For any student at Shippensburg University that feels they have a need for counseling or some sort of need in that area, could you elaborate just a little bit further about when the counseling center is available to students, who's welcome to come in, and that type of aspect?
Yeah. So we're open Monday through Friday. We are open 8:30 to 5. And students, they don't have to pay for it. When they walk in, they can make an appointment, or if it's a crisis situation, then we can deal with it before they need to make an appointment. Students come in for a variety of reasons. The top 3 each semester are for stress and anxiety, depression, relationship problems. Those are the top reasons that students come in. And as you might imagine, almost any student between that 18 to 22 time period is going to experience one or more of those. And so it's very typical sorts of things that students might come in for, as well as some very serious situations sometimes as well.
It's a wonderful service you provide, and Dr. Carlton, thank you so much for taking time to join us here in the studios today.
Sure.
Thank you for visiting shipraiders.com, and for more information on all 20 of SU's intercollegiate athletic teams, visit us at shipraiders.com.